And it says here they still don't know what caused that explosion.
I guarantee you it was sabotage. Those Redites have been causing a lot of trouble lately.
Is that the group of anti-steam tech radicals?
The very same.
Why Redites, though?
They're named after some fellow named Jonathan Red, apparently the one who began the whole anti-steam movement. It's really a rather stupid name, if you ask me. And uncreative, to boot.
Well, what would you call them, then?
Something simple, like the Anti-Steam Society.
That almost makes him sound classy. Perhaps you'd best stick with the detecting, dearest. Your nomenclature needs a bit of work.
Well, I think it's about time I get ready for bed.
All right, Miles, if you must.
Who could that be at this time of night?
Good question, but Adelaide can handle it for now. I need to take my medicine.
You certainly have your priorities in order. Go on then. Get that bottle of rat piss out of your nightstand and let's get this over with.
Ugh, tastes like the devil's sweat.
You could just stop taking it, you know.
Bill, now is not the time to...
Miles, could you come back out here, please?
Be right there, dearest. Who was that at the door?
A late-night courier. You've got a message from Upton.
It seems this case is rather urgent. She wants me to meet her as soon as possible.
But didn't you just take your soporific? Are you going to be all right to go?
It won't kick in for another hour or so. Should be plenty of time.
All right, I'm going to bed then. Good luck, dear.
Good night, Addie. Hello, Upton.
I'm glad you came, Fordham. Sorry for disturbing you this late.
I'm curious to know what's so important that it couldn't wait until morning.
An infant kidnapping in Lyon. The report came in tonight just before my shift ended. The family wants to keep the investigation very low-key. They're afraid if word gets out, they'll have all sorts of ne'er-do-wells making false ransom claims. That's why I suggested they let you investigate first. Head over to 45 Belcourt Street. That's the home of Malcolm and Miriam Harris, the parents of the kidnapped boy.
Harris? As in Harris Construction Company?
The very same. Owned by Malcolm's father, no less. Now you see why they wanted to keep this out of the public eye.
Indeed. If they manage to get a new transatlantic airship off the ground, it'll be an aura mine. I can see why they'd make an easy target. Okay, I'm on it. I'll try and find him as soon as I possibly can.
Right. Good luck on your investigation. Come see me again once you've figured things out, or if you just need to talk. I'll be here all day tomorrow as well, so feel free to stop by.
Mr. Miles Fordham is here to see you, sir.
Very good, Mr. Havelock. Send him up.
Yes, sir.
Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Fordham. I'm Malcolm Harris.
I'm terribly sorry to hear about what's happened, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Fordham. You were very highly recommended by Miss Upton. She said you'd be able to solve this faster and more discreetly than the police. I admit it's a rather unorthodox approach, but we're desperate.
I understand. I'll do all I can to find the kidnapper and bring your son back unharmed.
If you'd like to examine the nursery, it's just through that door to the left. I'll ask you to please try and keep quiet as I just sent my wife to bed. Her nerves are rather shot, you see.
Yes, of course. I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
No doubt you do, but I'm really not in the mood to talk right now. It's been a difficult evening, and I'm not certain I have it in me to answer your questions at the moment.
Fair enough, but I will need to ask you about the incident at some point.
Yes, that's fine. Just not now.
Be careful not to cut yourself, Miles. I don't think the Harris family has ever seen blood that isn't blue. Interesting. This fabric looks as though it came from a garment of some kind. Probably won't be another year or so before the child gets any practical use out of those blocks beyond putting them in his mouth. It looks rather flimsy. Let's not try sitting on it. Look, you can see the balcony extends all the way around the side of the manor.
That would make it rather easy for someone to access this window from the outside.
No evidence of what was used to smash the glass, though. Nice view of the garden from up here. Look at that. The kid has a toy chest. My sister and I used to have to keep our toys buried in the backyard. Of course, that is because the only toys we had were dead rats. That's odd. Why is there a loose button in the crib? Yeah, I'm no expert on children, but it seems like it would be dangerous to have around an infant. If only the flower shop burglar was as easy to find as this clue was. Yeah, the kidnapper left the child's blanket behind. There doesn't appear to be any trace of the silver spoon, though. Nice mobile. Custom made, too. There'll be no mistaking what family this child comes from.
Oh dear.
Ah, wonderful. The soporific has started working. Well done, Fordham. Now how are you supposed to... What's the word I'm looking for? Instigate? Interrogate? I just had it on the tip of my tongue.
Perhaps it's time to call it a night.
No talking now. He'll know it's all wrong.
Well, Mr. Harris, I believe I've done all I can for right now.
Did you find anything?
Yes, I believe I have some leads I can pursue. But the most important thing to do in cases like this
Is wait to hear from the kidnappers.
I'll be back tomorrow morning to continue my investigation and ask you and your wife some questions once you've had time to calm down a bit. In the meantime, I suggest you stay here and get some sleep. We'll all need it.
Miles, wake up! It's nearly noon.
Ah, so it is.
Why didn't you come to bed when you got home last night?
It was late. I didn't want to disturb you.
So what was so urgent about the case Upton sent you?
I'm trying to track a kidnapped child.
Oh my goodness, that's awful.
Yes, the pressure's on, but I think I should be able to crack it.
Assuming you actually managed to get anything done at the Harris Manor today.
Well, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Also, we've got company. Mrs. Delacroix is having her hair done here today, so please make yourself presentable.
You mean I'm not all ready?
At least do something about your hair. I do have a reputation to maintain after all.
What's wrong with my hair?
Do you really want me to answer that? We'll be here all day. Wouldn't you say it's time for a change of clothes, Miles? You've been wearing that coat for who knows how long.
So? Addie gave it to me. Besides, it gives me character.
Right. Brooding detective in a long black coat. That's never been seen before.
What are you talking about, Bill?
Never mind. It's admirable just how organized Adelaide is. Maybe someday the same can be said about you.
And then he said, "Oh, hello there. I don't believe we've met."
Mrs. Delacroix, this is my husband, Miles. Miles, this is Mrs. Delacroix.
Pleasure to meet you, madam.
Likewise, young man. Pleasure.
Is everything all right, Mrs. Delacroix?
Oh, yes, everything's fine. It's just that, well, you weren't what I was expecting, is all.
Keep your head, Miles. She may be a close-minded idiot, but she's just an old lady.
You mean the portrait over the fireplace didn't clue you in?
Now then, Mrs. Delacroix, what was it that you were telling me about Mr. Delacroix and his dogs?
Oh, yes. So, Harold came in and said...
Impressive. She got off pretty easy. I was expecting a repeat of the Parsons incident. You should give Adelaide a kiss on the way out, though, just to make the old bat feel extra uncomfortable. She can get as painted up and coiffed as she likes. It's not going to fix the ugliness inside.
Addie?
Not right now, Miles. I'm busy. We can talk once I finish with Mrs. Delacroix.
Goodbye, dearest.
I look forward to your return, my love.
Remind me, Miles, how is finding some rich people's kidnapped baby going to help us track down the flower shop burglar?
I'm not interested in the burglar right now. I want to help these people and get their child back. Or at the very least, help them find out what happened to him.
Right. Well, you'll need your full wits about you if you plan on doing that.
Again, with the nagging. What is it this time?
You need to stop taking the soporific, Miles. Adelaide has been trying to get you to stop for months, and Upton already suspects something is amiss. Not to mention your little episode last night. Trust me, no one is going to want to hire the dullard detective.
Clever. Did you come up with that one all by yourself?
What are you going to do when the cases stop coming in? How long before you get put away in Riverview?
If I do get locked away, it'll be your fault.
Which is exactly why you need to get back to your normal routine so you can find the burglar.
All right, fine. I'll stop. But the only thing that will change is that I'll wake up earlier, if I go to sleep at all.
The early bird catches the worm, as they say. Only in this case, our worm likes stealing flowers. Well, I'm glad that's settled then. I knew you'd see things my way eventually.
It's not as though you gave me much of a choice.
In time, you'll thank me. Probably not before the withdrawal hits, though.
Don't make me change my mind on this, Bill.
Mr. Fordham, you're back. Allow me to introduce my wife, Miriam.
Hello.
A pleasure, Mrs. Harris. I wish we could have met under better circumstances, but I assure you I'm doing all I can to find your son.
Thank you, Mr. Fordham.
Mr. Harris, has there been any communication from the kidnapper?
None at all.
Well, I'll have another look around, if you don't mind.
Miles, didn't you notice something a bit strange about the Harrises?
Quite a few things, actually. What are you referring to?
His son was just kidnapped, yet they're each on their own side of the sitting room. Not comforting each other, not crying together. Nothing.
They're stuck-up rich people. Not exactly the type to show emotion.
Miles, you know I'm the most cynical person there is when it comes to their type. But this isn't normal behavior, even for snobs. This goes deeper than saving face. There's something going on between them. I think you should find out what. Wardrobes are usually always full of wonderfully dark secrets.
An empty suitcase. I suppose Mr. Harris must travel every now and then. One thing is for certain, Mr. Harris uses entirely too much starch on his shirts. Yeah, it seems like this is where Mrs. Harris keeps her unmentionables. I like the ones with the frills and the stitched cat. Paperwork and receipts. Nothing particularly interesting here. More lacy underthings. I wonder which Harris they belong to. Mr. Harris's color selection is almost as drab as yours.
Let's see if there's anything of interest in any of the pockets.
So, Mr. Harris is a fan of the ponies, is he? I'm sure that's not causing him any trouble at all. Mr. Harris's color selection is almost as drab as yours.
Who in their right mind would need that many drawers?
Let's see what we have here. A very poorly written letter addressed to Mr. Harris.
I don't suppose it's a letter of admiration.
On the contrary, the author seems quite upset. Nothing else of note in any of the drawers.
Oh, well, at least we got to play a rousing game of Search the Rich People's Dresser. Fancy. Some poor servant's probably going to get a flogging for leaving it in here, though. Painting of the city. Probably the only time the Harris family sees any of the other boroughs. Oh, another four-poster. The Harris family certainly makes no secret of their wealth. It looks like a pile of women's clothes. Must belong to Mrs. Harris.
There's a handwritten note among the clothes.
The Harris family certainly has a nice view from which to look down upon the world. I wonder if they use the balcony to give speeches to the gardeners. Bear's picnic. Something about a group of giant human-like bears eating together in the woods is slightly unsettling.
There's a small emblem sewn onto the side of this piece of fabric. It just says SS.
Somebody's initials, maybe? Be careful not to cut yourself, Miles. I don't think the Harris family has ever seen blood that isn't blue. Look, you can see the balcony extends all the way around the side of the manor.
That would make it rather easy for someone to access this window from the outside.
No evidence of what was used to smash the glass, though. Yeah, the kidnapper left the child's blanket behind. There doesn't appear to be any trace of the silver spoon, though. Some sort of fuzzy animal wearing a waistcoat. Charming. A steam-powered bottle warmer. Certainly beats having to do it in the fireplace. Or in the case of my parents, over a barrel fire.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, of course.
Tell me everything you can about the kidnapping.
I don't know much. I was out last night while it happened.
Where had you been previously?
I was out with friends. My wife can verify the time I arrived home.
Wait a minute. I know this attitude all too well. This man is hiding something. Most likely from his wife. I doubt his voice is from beyond the grave, so the question is, what's his secret?
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
Looks like it came from a piece of clothing. Possibly a jacket.
Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
Maybe? I can't really say. You'll have to excuse me, Mr. Fordham. I've got quite a lot on my mind right now. If I can think of anything, I'll be sure to let you know.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is a good boy. Very quiet. Miriam had wanted a child almost from the moment we married. You know how women are when they have their hearts set on something. I saw no need to rush, but...
Nice to know you're not the only one. Hey, Miles.
The first 2 times Miriam was with child, she suffered some unfortunate accidents. She was devastated, as you can imagine. So when Charles finally came along, he turned out to be quite a blessing. I can't imagine what sort of depraved madman would take him from us like this. You must find him, Mr. Fordham.
I intend to, Mr. Harris. I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, not at all. Do you think the kidnapper might have left it behind?
It's a distinct possibility. Tell me about yourself.
There isn't much to tell, really. My life has been fairly well publicized in the newspapers.
Let's pretend for a moment that I skip over the society pages.
Well, I'm an investor. My father Clyde runs Harris Construction Company, which I will someday inherit. Any other details about me are fairly trivial nonsense, I think.
Mr. Harris, what can you tell me about these?
What? How did you...
Listen, I'm trying to help you and your family. I can't do it if I don't get the entire truth.
Do you think we could discuss this somewhere more private?
I suppose we could.
Good. Let's move to the nursery then.
Shall we continue our conversation, Mr. Harris?
Yes, of course.
Now that your wife is out of earshot, tell me about the kidnapping and what these betting stubs have to do with it.
Right. As I said before, it had already happened when I got home. I had just come from spending the evening at the meadows.
I see. I take it your wife isn't impressed by your hobby?
I promised her weeks ago that I would stop going, but I've had such a good streak lately. The last thing I wanted was to upset her further, yet it would be foolish of me to just give up on something so promising.
Can you think of anyone who might want to do you harm by taking your son?
Several, I'm afraid.
Go on.
I haven't exactly had the best of luck, Mr. Fordham. That's why this latest streak was so important to me. The truth is, I've gambled away most of my money. I've had to take out several loans so Miriam doesn't get suspicious. If she ever found out, it would be over. I can't lose her, Mr. Fordham. I just can't.
Where have I heard this before? You know, things would be so much easier if people just talked to each other.
I've tried doing business above board, but lately I've had to seek other resources.
What do you mean?
I was forced to visit a lending office. The owner was a rather shady Sambo, but I figured he'd be easier to deal with than the usual sheenies that run those type of places.
Can you believe this guy? Maybe we should just leave the kid be. He'd probably be better raised by wolves.
Who was the owner?
Mr. LeFay. I didn't bother to get his first name. His business is an abattoir row in Chumley. Horrid place, but I was desperate.
You think this Mr. LeFay may have taken your son as collateral?
Let's just say there isn't much those type of people wouldn't do to put a crown in their pocket.
I found this letter in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
You went through our things?
I'm a private investigator, Mr. Harris. It's part of my job.
Of all the insolence!
You're upset, I know, but do you want me to find your son or don't you?
Yes, of course I do. That letter was sent to me by mistake. It was written to my father. Well, if you can even call that writing.
Have I ever mentioned how much I hate rich people? Because I really hate rich people.
Your father? Doesn't he own the company building the new airship?
Yes, that's right. He's been receiving many letters just like that one since the Lyon disaster. But that Devins fellow in particular has sent one every week, along with a bag of chicken bones and dust.
How peculiar.
Not only that, he leads a daily protest in front of the construction yard where the HMS Lenore is being built, trying to halt production. My God! How did I not see this before?
See what?
Devins! He has a grudge against this family because of what happened with the Lyon. I'd put money on him being involved with the kidnapping somehow, as a form of retaliation.
Mr. Harris clearly hasn't learned his lesson about betting, it seems.
I'll just have to speak with Mr. Devins and see for myself. How goes the construction of the new airship?
There have been some complications, but nothing we can't handle.
Could you be a bit more specific?
Well, I already told you about the trouble with protesters at the yard, and we're blocked pending Royal Maverick's review of the safety regulations for the prototype etheric diffusion engines. Agitators and red tape aside, we should still be on schedule to have the Lenore finished and in the air by the end of the year. But really, Mr. Fordham, what the deuce does this have to do with finding Charles?
He has a point, you know.
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right. If you don't mind, Mr. Fordham, I'm going back to the living room. I don't want Miriam getting suspicious.
I have some questions for you if you're up to answering them, Mrs. Harris.
I'll try my best, Mr. Fordham.
Tell me what you know about your son's kidnapping.
Oh, my poor baby! Oh.
Mrs. Harris, I know this is difficult, but I need as much information as you can give me so I can bring your son back.
Yes, you're right. I have to stay strong. For Charles. It happened sometime between 6 and 8 last night, I think. Both my husband and I had gone out. Charles was in the care of his nanny, Mrs. Davis. I arrived home first, around 8:30, and that's when I found the scene in the nursery, as it was.
And what was it you found?
Mrs. Davis, unconscious in her chair, the broken window, and Charles missing from his crib. Malcolm arrived home shortly afterwards, around 9, and then immediately sent our butler, Mr. Havelock, to notify the police. We stayed up waiting for any contact from the kidnappers, but there was nothing.
Your husband mentioned he was out with friends last night. Where were you?
Oh, I was visiting with some of my friends. We gathered at one of their homes for a concert.
It seems hiding something from your spouse is an activity both Harrises partake in.
I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, I don't recognize it. It looks like it came from some cheap coat. Is that what the ruffian who took my baby was wearing?
That's what I'm trying to determine. What can you tell me about Mrs. Davis?
Well, she's worked for us since Charles was born, a little over 6 months ago.
How did you come to employ her?
Malcolm's mother had a friend whose daughter she used to care for. She came highly recommended. We've never had any problems with her. She's always been a dream.
Where is she now?
In her room, I would guess. With Charles missing, there's little for her to do.
Where might I find her room?
There's a small building just around the back of the manor. Hers is the 4th door from the left.
Tell me a bit about yourself, Mrs. Harris.
Mr. Fordham, my son has been kidnapped and is out there alone, terrified and confused. What could I possibly tell you that would make any difference to you finding him?
I suppose you're right, Mrs. Harris. My apologies if I upset you. Can you think of any reason why your son would be a target for kidnapping?
It could be that someone wants our money, or some lunatic who's angry about the new airship. My husband's an investor, and my father-in-law owns the company building it, you see. I just don't know, Mr. Fordham. Frankly, the fact that something like this could even happen is just terrifying.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is our only child. He's such a good boy. Never makes a fuss. Always very sweet. Oh, Charles, you must be so frightened out there without your mother. Oh, please, Mr. Fordham. You have to bring him home.
I'll do my best. I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
No, I've never seen it before. Do you think it was left by the kidnapper?
Perhaps. Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
No, I can't think of anyone or anything I know with those initials.
I found this note in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
I've never seen that note before in my life.
Are you absolutely sure?
Mr. Fordham, you mentioned you valued discretion. I ask you to please exercise some now.
Would it be possible to speak about this in private? In another room, perhaps?
Out of the question, Mr. Fordham. I shall not leave this sitting room in the company of another man if my husband is not present.
Yes, I understand. Let's put the subject on hold for now.
What a life these rich people lead. All the money in the world and they're trapped like rats.
That's all for now, Mrs. Harris.
Very well.
Come in.
Good day to you, ma'am. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator. I'm looking into the kidnapping of Charles Harris. Are you Mrs. Davis?
I am. Oh, bless the spirits. They've sent someone to help at last.
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
Tell me about the kidnapping of Charles Harris.
Oh, dear. May the spirits forgive me. I feel so awful. Charlie was my responsibility, and I failed.
Mrs. Davis, that is beside the point. What's important now is finding him and bringing him home. To do that, I need your full cooperation.
Oh, you're right, Mr. Fordham. I'm sorry. I just need to collect my thoughts, get the negative vibrations out of my mind. Now, what specifically would you like to know?
What time did the kidnapping occur?
I'm not entirely sure. I know I was in the nursery having a cup of tea about 8:30. I remember feeling very drowsy. I must have passed out then because the next thing I knew, I was being woken by Mrs. Harris. That was after she got home, about 10:30. To think, whoever took Charlie did it while I was in the room. Oh, may the spirits grant me peace.
Do you happen to take any sort of sleep medications or soporifics?
Oh, dear me, no. Those types of drugs cloud the mind and make it impossible to tune into the ether.
You say that as though it were a bad thing.
I beg your pardon?
Apologies, I spoke out of turn. Can you think of anyone who would have wanted to take the child?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but I am quite sensitive to the energy and vibrations that people give off. I get the impression that Mr. and Mrs. Harris aren't very happy in their marriage.
Ah, come on. Anyone could have picked up on that. Anyone except you, that is.
Mr. Harris likes to stay out late and not take his wife with him. I can't remember the last time they went out together. I don't know what he gets up to, but it's possible he may have made some enemies.
Can you think of any reason why someone would want to kidnap Charles?
It might have been for money, but last I heard, there was no demand for a ransom. I honestly don't know why this happened, Mr. Fordham. I just hope you find the poor child. He must be scared to death.
I found this piece of torn fabric in the nursery. Does it look familiar to you?
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
I found this button in the baby's crib. Do you recognize it?
Why, yes. That's one of Barney's eyes.
Barney?
Charlie's stuffed bear. It's his favorite toy, a gift from my friend Linda.
I didn't find a stuffed bear in the nursery.
Then whoever took the baby must have taken Barney as well. Oh, at least the poor thing has something to comfort him. Bless the spirits.
Who is Linda?
Mrs. Linda Walker. She's a good friend of mine. As I said, she gave me Barney as a gift for Charlie.
Can you tell me anything else about her?
Oh, she's a lovely girl, very much in tune with her spiritual nature. I greatly enjoy my conversations with her.
When was the last time you saw her?
Oh, I don't remember. No, wait. It was at the last Spectre Society meeting on the 19th. That's right.
What is the Spectre Society?
It's a club for spiritualists and amateur investigators of the paranormal. We meet twice a month to socialize and discuss our findings.
I see. Sounds fascinating.
Oh, I don't expect you to share my beliefs, Mr. Fordham.
Oh, I have a bit more experience than you'd think with regards to the spirit world.
You can say that again.
Where exactly do these meetings take place?
At a private residence in Gascon.
May I have the address?
Why, yes, it's 325 Rue Jameau. Are you going to seek spiritual guidance to find Charlie?
Perhaps. You never know what might be worth looking into. Do you have Linda Walker's address?
No, I don't. I never visited her home. I get the feeling she doesn't like having visitors or being home very much. She prefers to meet people elsewhere. I was the same way after my husband died. It was embarrassing for my friends to see me living so differently. But I feel it's not just a matter of pride for dear Linda. I think there are lots of bad memories associated with where she lives. I try to stay away from places like that. They leave a mark on the soul, you know.
How long have you worked as a nanny?
Only a few years. I never had to work when I was married. My husband had a lot of money. Unfortunately, he was in great debt. And after the spirits took him back to the ether, I wasn't left with much. So I began working as a nanny to make ends meet. But I consider taking care of children a reward in its own right.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Pretty distinguished-looking gentleman. Handsome. Good fashion sense. Wonder who he is. That chest is full of undressed dolls? What the hell is wrong with this old bat?
I'll be going now, Mrs. Davis.
May the spirits guide your path.
Hello, sir. Welcome to LaFay Lenders. I'm the owner, Chester LaFay. Are you looking to take out a loan?
Not today, I'm afraid. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator.
Look, I don't know what you've heard, but I run a clean business here. I don't need any trouble.
And I'm not here to cause any, for the moment.
Just keep your nose where it belongs, and we should get along fine.
I shudder to think how many people's financial freedoms are locked away in that cabinet. That's the latest model Computron. They don't come cheap. LaFay must be doing pretty well for himself.
Mr. LeFay, I'd like to ask you some questions.
Fine, but keep it brief.
Tell me what you know about Malcolm Harris.
Ah, Mr. Harris. Took out a loan about a month ago. Still hasn't paid me back. In fact, he sent along a letter yesterday, saying he was having an emergency and needed more time. I probably should have refused to do business with him. As soon as he walked through the door, I could tell his type.
What type is that?
Upper class, bored with his life, trying to escape and doing it through vice. In his case, gambling.
This guy is good. Maybe you can pursue money lending if the whole private investigator thing doesn't work out.
But for some reason, I pitied him and decided to give him the loan anyway. Compassion isn't exactly an asset in this business, you see.
Nothing to worry about in your case, then.
Aside from that, I don't know anything about him. I prefer to keep how much I know about my clients to a minimum. Makes things easier for me.
Are you aware that Malcolm's son, Charles, was kidnapped last night?
I had no idea he even had a son. As I said, I don't ask my clients too many personal questions. Though now you've told me, I suppose that would explain the emergency he mentioned in his letter. Poor guy.
Exactly how much did Mr. Harris borrow from you?
Is that relevant to your investigation?
It would help to have an idea of exactly how much he owes you, yes.
I don't feel comfortable telling you the exact amount, but I will say it was over 500 crowns.
A considerable sum.
Like I said, probably shouldn't have done it, but I'll get the money back one way or another.
What's your policy regarding people who don't pay their loans back?
There are a few options. For the first 3 months or so, I'll send them a letter reminding them. After that, I start to threaten them with legal action. You wouldn't believe some of the things people do to avoid paying back their loans. One client went so far as to fake his own death.
Do you ever employ any more unusual methods?
Now wait just a minute. I see where this is going. Mr. Fordham, I'm a family man myself. If you're implying that I would stoop to kidnapping someone's child as collateral...
I never said that, Mr. LeFay.
Look, I have a family to consider. I'm not about to go getting my hands dirty when there's plenty of legitimate ways to handle the situation.
Take a look at this piece of fabric. Does it look familiar to you?
Sure, it looks like it came from a jacket. In fact, yes, it's the same fabric as the jacket I'm wearing.
Would you mind if I took a look at your jacket?
Sure, not a problem. Here. No tears in mine, huh?
Not a one. You clearly take good care of your clothing.
I don't mean to discourage you, Mr. Fordham, but I've seen a lot of people with this style of jacket. Hell, even Malcolm has one. I remember he was wearing it when he came in here.
I see. Thank you for the information, Mr. LeFay. I've got some more questions, Mr. LeFay.
Go ahead, then.
Tell me a bit about yourself and your business, Mr. LeFay.
What's to tell? I lend people money, they pay me back.
Surely it's not that simple.
Well, of course I charge interest, otherwise I'd never make a profit. I know people don't look upon the service I provide very favorably, but without my help, there would be a lot more unhappiness in the world.
How did you go about starting up this business?
I didn't. My former employer, Mr. Roth, left it to me when he passed.
That was rather good of him.
Yes, well, he didn't have any heirs, and he considered me to be the son he never had. He was fond of my family, too. I try and keep my work and home life as far away from each other as I can, though. There's a lot of things in this line of work that my wife and daughter are better off not knowing about.
I think that's all for now.
Well, someone certainly wasn't shy about making their opinion known.
And so we say to Harris and his cronies, no, we will not stand for this. Too many have died to allow this to continue. Steam tech must be stopped.
Now that is an impressive piece of machinery.
Pardon me, are you Arthur Devins by any chance?
Yes? Who are you?
Miles Fordham, private investigator. Could I ask you a few questions?
Guess so, yeah.
You seem very dedicated to your cause.
I'll take that as a compliment, Mr. Fordham.
There's quite a lot of people who are against steam tech, aren't there?
Yes, the movement is gaining ground and growing rapidly, I'm pleased to say.
I've heard stories about some more extreme members. Do you know anything about that?
You mean the Redites? Sure, I've heard of them. Even met a few. But if you think I'm telling you anything else beyond that, you're sorely mistaken.
Are you a member of the Redites, Mr. Devins?
No. I prefer more peaceful methods of making my voice heard. Now, if you don't mind, I think we should drop the subject.
Why are you out here protesting?
Because what Harris Construction is doing ain't right. I lost my wife in the Lyon crash, and I'm not the only one, neither. Hundreds of people were affected by that disaster, and now these bastards are making another airship. It's like a slap in the face to everyone who died. I just can't understand it.
What do you hope to accomplish by protesting?
Simple. We want construction of the Lenore stopped, and a full investigation into the Lyon disaster. Not only that, we want compensation for our losses. Royal Maverick took care of all the families of those on board, but the families of the ones in the park didn't get a single copper. It just isn't fair. We aim to make things right. After that, it'll just be a matter of time before people realize that there's no future in steam tech, and they'll call the whole thing off.
Ah, the innocence of the downtrodden. I wish I could be as naive as them. It would have made my life a lot easier.
You must have loved your wife very much.
Are you joking? I loved her more than there are stars in the sky. She was my whole world, Mr. Fordham, the light of my life. It's been nothing but cold and dark since she was killed. You're married, aren't you, Mr. Fordham? I see a ring on your finger.
I am, yes.
Then take my advice. Appreciate every moment you have with her. You never know when she'll be ripped out of your life, leaving you with nothing.
You know, this fellow was actually pretty wise. Maybe we misjudged him.
Do you recognize this letter, Mr. Devins?
How'd you get that? That wasn't meant for you.
I found it at the home of Mr. Malcolm Harris. He tells me you've been sending quite a few of these to his father.
Me and everyone else would had someone killed by that devil machine. I'm not the only one, you know.
Perhaps not, but he told me you were the most persistent. What have you got against the Harris family?
Family? Don't know nothing about the family. The only one I got a problem with is Clyde Harris, the one who owns this yard. He's just like all those other rich bastards with their heads in the clouds. The man don't care about the dead. He just wants to make as much money as he can. I'm just trying to make him realize how wrong he is.
Do you know anything about the kidnapping of Charles Harris?
Charles Harris? Who's that?
Clyde Harris's grandson.
I didn't even know we had a grandson. I can't believe someone with a grandkid, a family, would want more flying death in the air. How many more people have to die before someone realizes that steam machines are evil? People will kill their own mams for a crown these days.
Mr. Harris told me you send a bag of chicken bones and dust along with your letters. Why is that?
Chicken bones? Dust? Nah, that's not right. I've only sent letters.
Are you certain of that?
Yes, as sure as I'm standing here.
Right. And I'm the queen. I get the feeling this guy will crack if we figure out what the significance of his little gift is.
Does this piece of fabric look familiar to you?
Looks like it came from some fancy jacket, the type you'd expect to see on the snobs in Lyon. I could never afford clothes like that in a million years.
Do you recognize this button?
Can't say I do, but it looks handmade. I wonder how long it will be before the poor soul who crafted that button gets booted into the street and replaced with some steam-belching contraption.
Good day to you, Mr. Devins.
You too, Mr. Fordham.
Don't these people have jobs they need to go to?
Elect Hart Leroy, the man of the people. I think that's preaching to the choir around here. But the way this gate is set up, I think trespassers should get an award for being able to breach the fortress.
We won't stand for this injustice any longer.
Too dark to tell what's inside. They must enjoy the somber atmosphere.
Yes? May I help you?
This is the Spectre Society, right? I'm interested in joining.
Ah, yes it is. Welcome, darling. Our membership process is a bit different to most social clubs. We require a sponsor.
Sounds simple enough.
Well, you see, we ask that sponsors be people who have passed on into the spirit world. Once you name your sponsor, I will attempt communication beyond the ether. When they answer, you will be judged and considered for membership.
What are you looking for in a sponsor?
A willingness to communicate from beyond the ether, open-mindedness, a desire for truth. In other words, all the qualities of a member of the Spectre Society. Actually, we've had former members who have passed on act as sponsors before.
I've got a sponsor.
Excellent. What is the name of your sponsor, darling?
Actually, never mind. Can we talk?
Go on, I'm listening.
Can we go over my current case?
Of course. What have you got?
I found this button at the crime scene. The child's nanny identified it as the eye of his stuffed bear.
Did you find the bear at the scene?
No, the kidnapper must have taken it as well.
Interesting.
Either the kidnapper is very compassionate, or it's someone who knew the child. I found this torn piece of fabric at the crime scene. It's got an emblem with some initials on it.
I recognize that emblem. It's from Solomon Stitching, a little tailor shop in Lyon. My ex-husband had several jackets from there.
Sorry to dredge up old memories, but do you remember where they're located?
I believe it's on the corner of Bonneville Street and Surratt Avenue.
Fantastic. You're helpful as always, Upton. I spoke with Henrietta Davis, the Harris family nanny.
A sensible place to start. What did she have to say?
She claims to have been unconscious when the kidnapping took place.
She must be an extremely heavy sleeper.
I don't believe so. The way she described it made it sound like she was drugged.
Interesting. Definitely worth looking into, I'd say.
Have you ever heard of the Spectre Society?
I think so. They're some sort of ghost hunting club, aren't they?
A spiritualist group, yes.
Don't tell me this case has taken a turn for the supernatural.
Not exactly. It's just come up as a potential lead. I'm having some trouble getting in, though. They want me to name a sponsor who's dead.
Just when I thought I'd heard everything. Well, bluffing with some random name probably won't get you very far.
You're right. It would make more sense to try finding a name that would mean something to them. That's enough about the case for now.
Okay.
What's the other case you mentioned? The one you said was a higher priority.
Well, it seems we might have a mass murderer on our hands.
You don't say.
That's right. I didn't say because I shouldn't say. But so far, we've had 3 murders with a very similar MO in the past 2 months. Snelling is trying his hardest to keep it under wraps since the newspapers already caught wind of the first 2.
I don't envy the department there. I'm happy to stick with the missing persons and domestic disputes. How's work going?
Hectic as usual. Crime in the city seems to be getting worse and worse every day.
I suppose that's the price of progress.
God help us if they ever actually discover that ethericity stuff then. Things between you and Adelaide getting any better?
I'm really not sure. They haven't gotten worse, but things haven't been the same between us since Bill died.
Well, you need to figure things out, or everything is just going to explode in your face one of these days.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, Upton.
I'm merely speaking from experience. If I'd seen the warning signs of Harold sooner, it would have saved me quite the headache. At least your marriage seems like it's still worth saving.
That's it, I think.
Then you'd better get back to it.
Good day to you, sir. Welcome to Solomon Stitching. I'm Jonah Solomon. Please, let me know if I can help you with anything.
Mr. Solomon?
Yes, sir. How may I be of service? Oh, let me guess. You're looking to replace that old coat. It looks like it's got quite a few stories it could tell me.
You should listen to the man, Miles. He clearly knows what he's talking about.
Not today, I'm afraid. There's still a few more stories it has left to tell. Actually, I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions.
Questions? Very well, but if they aren't about tailoring, I don't know how much help I'll be.
I found this piece of torn fabric with your emblem on it. Can you tell me anything about it?
Yes. Brown, wool, houndstooth. This is from one of the more popular jackets I sell.
And here I thought my ability to name ales within 5 seconds of tasting them was good. This fella has me beat.
Do you have any of them in stock currently?
Well, sure. I've got one on the display dummy over there.
Is there any way you can tell me who you've sold them to?
Ooh, I don't think so. I've sold at least 20 in the past month. As I said, it's a very popular style.
Is there anything you can tell me about this button?
Looks like it's made of wood. Not very well crafted either. Definitely not from one of my products.
This is a nice shop you have. I never even knew it existed.
Well, better late than never, I always say. Life has a funny way of always taking us where we need to go in the end.
True. Although I think it's easy to miss out on things from time to time.
Oh, of course. It's easy to overlook the details, but in the grand scheme of things, you'll end up where you need to be. And in this case, you ended up here. So, please, feel free to take a look around. Let me know if you find anything you like.
How did you get into this business, Mr. Solomon?
I was always good with a needle and thread. When I was a boy in Poland, I would help my mother with her sewing. Then, during the war with Russia, I fixed uniforms and stitched up wounds. Not long after that, I moved to Vespuccia, settled here in New Britannia. My first shop was in the Chum, but thankfully, I was very successful and was able to move to Lyon. I won't lie to you, this location is much, much nicer. It's refreshing to not have to step over drunken hobos when I open and close the shop.
Oh, but that's part of the charm of owning a business in the Chum.
Not much else to say beyond that. My business is my life.
You seem very dedicated to your craft.
That's right. You won't see any of that newfangled steam-powered nonsense in here. Everything is done by hand and with care. I use only the finest quality materials and stitch every thread myself. And that's the way it's gonna stay as long as I'm around. It's worked for 45 years. There's no reason to change as far as I'm concerned.
I'll be taking my leave of you now, Mr. Solomon.
Very good.
Oh, Mr. Fordham. Oh, thank God you're back.
What's going on?
Our butler just brought this in. He found it stuck to the gate outside.
You don't suppose... How about that?
It matches the piece of torn fabric perfectly.
So, this means...
It could mean many things. The only thing that's certain is that a piece of this jacket ended up on the floor of the nursery.
Seems like something worth asking Mr. Harris about.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, of course.
What is your opinion of this ransom note?
It's obvious who sent it, Mr. Fordham. Why are you wasting your time here? Go arrest Mr. Devins!
Mr. Harris, do you recall the torn piece of fabric I found in the nursery?
Yes, what about it?
As it turns out, one of the jackets in your wardrobe has a tear exactly the same size and shape as this one. Would you care to tell me how that happened?
That can't be.
I'm afraid it is, so explain it.
I have no explanation. The truth is, I haven't worn that jacket in weeks. I've no idea how it was torn.
Are you suggesting someone else took your jacket and wore it when the child was taken?
I don't know. Perhaps someone is trying to make it look as though I... But that's absurd. Why would I kidnap my own son?
Why indeed, Mr. Harris?
You really think he kidnapped his own son, Miles? Seems more likely he was set up. But he also doesn't strike me as a terribly good parent. Maybe it would serve him right to be blamed for this. We've done our part. The police can handle the search for the missing baby.
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right.
I have some questions for you if you're up to answering them, Mrs. Harris.
I'll try my best, Mr. Fordham.
Did you read the ransom note?
No, Malcolm wouldn't let me. He said I was already too upset.
That's all for now, Mrs. Harris.
Very well.
Mr. Devins?
Yes?
Mr. Devins, what can you tell me about this note?
I've never seen that before in my life.
Are you sure about that?
Absolutely. It's as I told you. I had nothing to do with that boy's kidnapping. I didn't even know he existed until you told me. Remember?
Yeah. And that note conveniently showed up right after you had that conversation. Let him stew in his own lies. His unique way of spelling is all the evidence we need to tie him to the note.
Very well, Mr. Devins. Forget I asked. Good day to you, Mr. Devins.
You too, Mr. Fordham.
Hello again, Mr. Fordham.
Pretty distinguished looking gentleman. Handsome. Good fashion sense. Wonder who he is.
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
That's a lovely portrait. Who is it of?
That is my late husband, Jonathan. He used to attend meetings of the Spectre Society with me, bless him. I tried to get him to be more in tune with the other side, but I think he was just humoring me. He was a good man. Everyone at the society cared for him very much.
I couldn't help but notice that chest full of dolls in the corner.
Oh, that. Oh, I know it must look a bit strange, but I pick up old and broken dolls so they can be repaired and donated to orphanages. It's my way of giving back to the community and helping poor children who have nothing to play with.
Well, what a kind soul. I wish she would find less creepy ways to express her altruism.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I'll be going now, Mrs. Davis.
May the spirits guide your path.
Oh, hello again. How may I help you?
So, about joining the Spectre Society.
As I mentioned, you'll need a sponsor from beyond the ether.
I've got a sponsor.
Excellent. What is the name of your sponsor, darling?
Jonathan Davis is my sponsor.
You knew Jonathan? He was such a kind man. Yes, I can feel his presence, and it speaks positively of you.
Please, come in, Mr. I didn't catch your name.
It's Miles Fordham.
And I am Angela Maxwell, the founder of the Spectre Society. Welcome.
May I offer you some refreshments? Some water or tea, perhaps?
You're very kind, but I'm afraid I must decline right now.
Well, please let me know if you change your mind.
Won't you look at this place? It's like a candy store for psychics. There's quite a few members in this group. A great man once said to me, "Bill, you aren't going to get very far in life just staring at balls." He's dead now. But then again, so am I.
What a fascinating device. Exactly what does it do?
That is an etherometer. It's designed to pick up vibrations from the ether and translate messages from the spirits.
The plaque says Leonora Pattinson, seer. She looks like someone I would not want to fool around with. Chicken bones and dust for bad luck in business, huh? That sounds awfully familiar. It's nice of Miss Maxwell to let people borrow her books, even if they are all just a bunch of nonsense. And coming from me, that's really saying something.
Could I ask you about some things, Miss Maxwell?
Certainly, darling.
What can you tell me about the Spectre Society?
Where to begin? I formed this club 2 years ago, right after I moved to New Britannia. During our meetings, we discuss our experiences with paranormal phenomena and organize investigations.
What sort of investigations?
We look into places all around the city which have been reported as haunted. New Britannia is teeming with the spirits of those killed during the French and British takeovers of the city. Not only that, but there is a prevalence of mystic religious practices here in Gascon, brought over by immigrants from the Antilles.
Fascinating.
There are plenty of books on the subject over there in the bookcase, if you're interested in learning more.
Do you know anything about the kidnapping of Charles Harris?
I'm afraid I haven't heard anything about any kidnappings, darling. If you wish, I can commune with the spirits and see if I can help locate your missing person.
That won't be necessary, Miss Maxwell, though I appreciate the offer. I spoke with Henrietta Davis, and she mentioned one of your other members, Linda Walker. Can you tell me anything about her?
Linda. Poor dear. Of all our members, she is the one I feel for the most.
Why is that?
She's had a tragic life, but I believe the Spectre Society has helped her greatly. Not only has she made a good friend in Henrietta, she's also dealt with her grief in a positive way. She has devoured my collection of books, educated herself on many subjects. I would say she's become an expert on clairvoyance and metempsychosis. It's always nice to know that the club can help those who have suffered.
Do you see her often?
Yes, she comes by about once or twice a week.
What can you tell me about Linda and Henrietta's friendship?
It's so lovely to see them together at the meetings. They're practically inseparable. It's quite sweet. They often leave messages for each other in the guest book. When Linda found out that Henrietta was taking care of an infant, she even gave her a toy bear for the child. I remember Linda lighting up with excitement when she asked about him. She really loves children. It's such a terrible shame about... But please, let's discuss something more pleasant, shall we, darling?
I'm sorry, what was it you said? Madam Psy, what?
Metempsychosis, darling. It's a philosophical term which comes from ancient Greece. It refers to the transmigration of the soul after death.
Is that anything like reincarnation?
Essentially, yes. There's a book on the subject over in the bookcase, which can tell you far more than I possibly could.
What's this tragic story about Linda you mentioned?
Oh, dear. I probably shouldn't say.
Miss Maxwell, I'm going to be frank. I'm investigating a kidnapping, and Mrs. Walker is a person of interest. I need to know as much about her as possible to help me solve this case. Do I make myself clear?
Well, if it will help, Linda was married to a man named Thomas. Together, they had a son named Alexander. Thomas revealed himself to be a terribly cruel man. When he gave himself over to the drink, he would fly into rages and beat both Linda and the boy. One day, she came home to find both her son and husband dead.
My God, what happened?
The police ruled it a murder-suicide. Poisoning, apparently. Linda has been trying to make contact with Alexander's spirit for the past year or so, but has had no luck. It really is a terrible tragedy.
Do you know Linda Walker's address?
I'm afraid not, darling. Linda has always been somewhat private, and that's not something I consider to be crucial information.
Do you know any way I can find her?
You could always come back for our next meeting. It will be the first Thursday of next month.
By then, we'll have completely lost track of Charles. There has to be another way of finding Linda.
What made you decide to start up this club?
I began communing with the spirits at a very early age. My twin sister, Rachel, died after falling into an icy pond when we were 8 years old.
I'm very sorry, Miss Maxwell.
Oh, I appreciate your sympathy, darling, but don't feel too bad. Rachel began speaking to me shortly after that. She has served as my spirit guide ever since.
Spirit guide? You mean you still speak with her?
Oh, yes. Every day. In fact, I was just speaking with her before you arrived. As I grew older, I realized there were others in the world who were also able to communicate with spirits, and those who had an interest in what lies beyond the ether. And so, once I moved to New Britannia, I decided to start up this club so we could gather and share our experiences.
Do you suppose she can hear what I'm saying? Hey, Angela, try a bit less eyeshadow, would you? You look like a purple raccoon. Nothing. Clearly a fraud. Ah, well.
I was wondering.
Yes?
When you communicate with the spirits, are you able to stop?
If I wish them to leave me, yes. I bid them farewell, and they usually depart back into the ether.
What about the more persistent ones?
You do remember I'm right here, don't you?
Well, just between you and me. Those spirits are best dealt with by having the other kind of spirits. Quiets them right down.
I prefer soporific myself.
Oh? You hear the voices of the spirits as well, Mr. Fordham. But of course, now the reason for your visit to the Spectre Society is obvious. Do you see? All our paths eventually become clear. I'm glad yours has brought you here.
Oh, wonderful. Now she started rhyming. Don't get any funny ideas about telling her about me. She may be a lunatic, but that's no reason to expose yourself as one, too.
I don't hear the voices of all spirits, just one.
Miles, what are you doing?
Ah, you have a spirit guide. Please, tell me more, darling.
I wouldn't call him a spirit guide so much as a spirit nag.
This is a very, very bad idea.
Do you know who this spirit is?
Yes, it's my former detective partner, Bill. He died on our last case together, because of me.
What happened?
He was on a roof, being held at knife point by a burglar. Bill wanted me to shoot, but they were too close. I couldn't risk it. There was a struggle. Bill lost his footing and fell to his death.
Oh my, you poor darling. Is he angry with you?
Well, he is now. He doesn't think it's a good idea to tell others about him. But normally, he's the same as he was in life. He just wants me to find the man responsible for his death. I've told him I'm really the one responsible, but he insists it's the burglar.
I see. This is quite the unfortunate situation. My advice to you is this. Spirits often know best. You do well to listen to him about keeping his presence to yourself. Not everyone is as open-minded as we members of the Spectre Society.
Maybe I misjudged her.
I know. It's been hardest keeping this from my wife, but I can't drive her away. She's all I've really got left.
Your story has touched me, Mr. Fordham. I will do everything I can to help you and your spirit guide find peace. If I find anything out which might help you, I will contact you personally.
Thank you, Miss Maxwell. I appreciate it.
Well, that could have turned out much worse. I'm warning you, Miles. Tell anyone else about me, and I won't be so forgiving.
Thank you for the information. It was very enlightening.
It was my pleasure, darling.
I'll be going now.
May the spirits guide you to that which you seek.
Hello again, Mr. Fordham.
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
Mrs. Davis, have you ever had Linda visit you at the Harris Manor?
Oh, no, of course not.
Then would you care to explain your note to her in the Spectre Society guest book?
Please, Mr. Fordham, I didn't mean to lie to you. It's just that it gets so lonely by myself in the house at night. So every now and then, I invite Linda to come over for tea and some company.
I see. And when was the last time this happened?
2 nights ago. Please don't tell Mr. and Mrs. Harris, Mr. Fordham. If they found out what I was doing, they'd have me dismissed without a reference.
I won't, but I'd very much like to speak with Mrs. Walker. Do you have any idea where I can find her?
All I know is that she works as a seamstress at a shop in Lyon, but I don't know the name. I'm sorry, I can't be of any more help than that.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Mr. Devins?
Yes?
Do you practice voodoo, Mr. Devins?
What?
The chicken bones and dust you send along with your letters. It's a voodoo spell meant to cause bad luck in business. Quite a convenient solution, wouldn't you say?
I don't know what you're on about.
Come now, Mr. Devins. I'd appreciate it if you didn't think I was stupid.
All right, fine. I went to go see one of them magic women in Gascon. She told me about the spell and what I needed to do. I don't believe in the stuff, but I thought maybe if I used it, I could scare Harris enough to get him to stop making the new airship.
Well, I don't mean to be one to put a damper on your amateur witchcraft, but it doesn't seem to be doing you much good.
No, his grandson got kidnapped. That's not something I'd call luck.
Good day to you, Mr. Devins.
You too, Mr. Fordham.
This Arthur Devins joker is bad news. Not only is he making threats to the Harris family, he also has the nerve to send a ransom note. We have enough evidence to pin the crime on him, I think. The police can deal with the headache of actually finding the baby.
Welcome back. Let me know if I can help you with anything.
I've got some more questions for you.
All right, I'll do my best to answer them.
Do you by chance employ a seamstress named Linda Walker?
I do, yes.
Is she here?
No, she has the day off today, but she'll be in tomorrow.
Would it be possible to have her address?
Begging your pardon, but why should I give it to you?
Her son, Alexander, and mine were schoolmates. I just found a book he lent my son, and I wanted to return it. I've been trying to track her down for ages, and only just found out where she worked.
Oh, I see. It was a terrible tragedy what happened with her boy and her husband. I know how private Mrs. Walker is, but I'm sure she would appreciate you returning her son's book. All right, She lives at 403 St. Agnes Street.
Remember when you couldn't even bring yourself to trick people into thinking their shoelaces were untied? You've come a long way, Miles.
I'll be taking my leave of you now, Mr. Solomon.
Very good.
Some people would call that humming and hissing the sound of progress. I'd call it annoying. This machine is quiet. It's already gone up considerably in my estimation.
You could learn a thing or two from it, Bill.
It says here that Linda Walker is in the upstairs apartment, and someone named Douglas Emafiel is under the stairs. Nobody home. Now what?
What? Who are you? Are you from the Steamworks?
Afraid not, sir.
Damn. Oh well, what can I do for you?
Why did you think I was from the Steamworks?
Because I contacted them a few days ago when my boiler broke, and nobody has come to repair it yet. I should have known better. Those fools always take their time, if they even bother showing up at all. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in here with nothing but cold water. If I catch pneumonia and die, you'll know who to blame.
Do you know Linda Walker?
Of course. She lives upstairs. Who's asking?
I'm Miles Fordham. I'm trying to find Linda so I can speak with her.
What's your business with her?
I'm afraid that's private.
Well, she's out right now. You'll have to come back another time if you want to visit her.
Have you got any idea when Mrs. Walker will be back?
Not for a few days. She told me she was going away for a bit. Ah, that reminds me. She asked me to water her plants while she was gone. Just need to remember where I put the spare key.
Did you say something about having a spare key to Mrs. Walker's apartment?
Sure, I'm her landlord. I look after the place when she's gone. Got a bit of a green thumb, that one, so she puts me in charge of watering her plants. The trip up is a bit of a pain, though. My hips aren't what they used to be.
I'm a private detective, and it's of the utmost importance that I get that key from you.
Right. Private detective. I don't have to do anything you say. You're not really the law. So nice try, but I'm not betraying Mrs. Walker's trust so easily.
He says that now, but I'm willing to bet he'd do it if it benefited him in some way.
Sorry to bother you, sir. I'll just be on my way.
Miles, what are you doing? You don't know the first thing about steam engine repair.
It can't be that hard to work out.
If you're serious about getting it fixed, I'd suggest looking for someone who knows about this sort of thing first. But if you just want to charge in blindly, be my guest.
Ah, home at last.
It's always nice to see you walk through that door.
Addie?
What do you need, dear?
You weren't kidding about business picking up. You're averaging what, about 3 appointments per day?
More like 5. I told you, debutante ball season's busy.
Doesn't it get tiresome?
Not really. You'd be surprised at the sort of gossip I hear from my clients. I don't know what it is, but they just open up to me and tell me all kinds of personal things. You sure you don't want me to give you a trim?
I'm fine for now, dear. Thank you. I'd forgotten how good you are at écarté. You absolutely destroyed me the other night.
As I recall, you used to hold your own pretty well.
We should have another match soon. That way I can hone my skills.
Yes, we should. As long as you can concentrate, I'm sure you'll get as good as you used to be.
I can't believe the nerve of that narrow-minded old cow.
Who, Mrs. Delacroix? She's actually one of my nicest clients.
I don't know how you can tolerate her. If I were you, I'd strike her off my list.
If I did that for every one of my clients who thought the same as her, I'd be out of a job. That's just the way it is.
Maybe so, but it doesn't make it any less infuriating. Addie, you wouldn't happen to have any manuals on repairing steam engines in your library, would you?
Thinking of changing careers?
No, there's just a boiler that needs repairing and I need to figure out how to do it.
A boiler? What kind of engine is it?
I'm not sure, but it had Whitney 200 embossed on the side.
Oh, of course. That's one of the most common steam engines around, used in practically everything. In fact, the player piano at the Firkin and Fryer had one, and that thing was always going out of alignment. If that's all that's happened with this one, I know how to fix it. Used to have to do it all the time.
Adelaide Fordham, you are just full of surprises.
Where is this boiler?
Not terribly far. It's a townhouse on St. Agnes in Livingston.
Let's go then. I could use some fresh air. Not quite a player piano, but it shouldn't be too tough. Would you like me to walk you through it, or would you prefer I fix it myself?
I think I'll let you handle it, dearest. Machine repair isn't my specialty.
All right, let me have a look. Just as I thought. It's out of alignment. This will only take a moment. There, just like the old days.
Thank you for your help, dear.
You're welcome. Boilers are a lot like people, you know. Let too much pressure build up inside them, and an explosion becomes inevitable. You do well to remember that, dearest. Now, I have to be getting to my appointment with Mrs. Lapone. See you tonight.
Yes? What is it?
I fixed the boiler for you.
What? Are you serious? It's pretty pathetic when some yahoo off the street does a better job than the people paid to do this sort of thing. I owe you, friend.
Might I take you up on that offer and get that spare key to the apartment?
Oh, right. You said you were a private detective, didn't you? Did Mrs. Walker do something wrong? Is she in trouble?
I'm not entirely sure yet, which is why I need to take a look inside her apartment.
I see. Well, I wouldn't normally do this, but you did me a great service by fixing the boiler. I can't just give you the spare key, but I can let you into the apartment.
That'll be just fine. Thank you.
What in the ether?
Cripes, did a tornado come through this place or what?
Looks as though she definitely left in a hurry. I wonder if she planned on ever coming back.
I'll be waiting for you in the kitchen, Mr. Fordham. Just let me know when you're done looking around.
Torn apart. She took most everything. Well, it doesn't appear she had much to take. There's a handwritten note here. Valerian mixed with chamomile. Sedative effects, deep sleep.
Seems Mrs. Walker's an amateur herbalist.
Maybe not so amateur. I'd love to see the look on Mrs. Davis's face if she knew it wasn't a spirit that possessed her. In fact, let's go tell her, so I can see it.
You've gotten fairly misanthropic in your death, Bill.
Have I? I hadn't noticed. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to have my fill of plants and flowers. It's a boy. Can't be more than 7 or 8 years old. If that's Linda's son, why would she leave this behind?
Good question.
I thought my apartment was messy. You're actually gonna dig through that mess? I sure hope it's worth it. That bit of torn wallpaper looks almost deliberate. What do you know? She hid a book behind the wallpaper. Looks like a journal. Well, this is pretty damn incriminating.
I'll say. Now we just need to figure out where she's gone, as well as how she managed to drug Mrs. Davis.
Oh, we've got you now, Linda. Thought you could be clever and get away with the baby, did you?
Bill?
Well, you thought wrong. With Fordham and Legere on the case, the only thing you're getting is a one-way trip to jail.
Bill?
And the worst part is how sloppy she was. I mean, really? She couldn't think to pick up a button? She might as well have left a signed confession in the crib for all the good it did her.
Bill, would you just shut up, for God's sake? Huh? Is everything all right?
Yes, everything's just fine. I just stubbed my toe on the bed frame.
You ought to be more careful, Mr. Fordham.
Sorry, Miles. You know how I get when we're close to solving a case.
You always do this. I need to concentrate, and I can't hear myself think with you yapping away.
Right, sorry. I'll keep it to myself.
Thank you.
But you have to admit, she really would have saved us the trouble if...
Bill.
Right. Not another peep. As you were. A receipt with yesterday's date. One-way train ticket to Pierre in Lorraine. Departed this afternoon.
Thought she could get away easy, it seems. Well, I hate to disappoint her.
Nice patterns. I wonder if Linda makes all her own clothes. It's a boy. Can't be more than 7 or 8 years old. If that's Linda's son, why would she leave this behind?
Because she thinks she's got the real thing again.
A receipt with yesterday's date. One-way train ticket to Pierre in Lorraine. Departed this afternoon.
Thought she could get away easy, it seems. Well, I hate to disappoint her.
And the books she left behind are all trashy romance novels. Why wouldn't she take those? They're clearly the best ones.
I hope you were able to find out what you needed.
Yes, thank you for your cooperation.
Hello again, Mr. Fordham.
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
Mrs. Davis, where did you get the tea you drank on the night of the kidnapping?
From my own private supply. I drink a blend of hibiscus and elderberry. It clears the mind and puts me more in tune with the spirits.
Did it taste off to you?
No. Why do you ask?
Because I think your tea may have been drugged.
Wait, are you saying?
I believe Mrs. Walker used her own herbs to drug your tea, knowing you'd drink a cup the following evening. She then snuck into the house after you'd fallen asleep and took the child.
Oh, my word, I never would have thought.
I know, Mrs. Davis. But don't worry, I'm doing everything I can to find her.
Oh, may the spirits guide you, Mr. Fordham.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, I'd say we have everything we need to prove it was Linda who drugged Mrs. Davis's tea and took the child. And we know where she's going, too. Upton will want to know about this as soon as possible.
Can we talk?
Go on, I'm listening.
Can we go over my current case?
Of course. What have you got?
Are you familiar with the term metempsychosis?
No, what is it?
Apparently some mystics and philosophers maintain that it's a process whereby human and animal souls are transferred to new bodies upon death.
Fascinating. Some people have such queer ideas. What's that got to do with the kidnapping, though?
I believe it may be the motive for the kidnapping.
Intriguing. I can't wait to hear your findings.
That's enough about the case for now.
Okay.
I'm ready to wrap this case up.
Okay, who's your prime suspect?
It was Linda Walker,
Who is she?
a seamstress who befriended the Harris family nanny. She took the child because she believes he's the reincarnation of her deceased son, whom she accidentally poisoned.
My God.
You'll find a journal explaining her motive at her apartment, as well as the plants she used to drug Mrs. Davis.
But what about the broken window in the nursery?
All part of a false crime scene she set up to draw our attention away from her.
Excellent work, Miles. Did you manage to find out where Mrs. Walker is now?
Yes, I found a receipt for a one-way train ticket to Pierre, which departed this afternoon.
Fantastic. We can send a telegram to the train station and have her arrested upon arrival. You've done extremely well, Fordham. Snelling could only hope to have a detective as good as you again.
You flatter me.
Then I'd better stop before your head gets any bigger. All right, Miles. I'll go through the proper channels and report your information as an anonymous tip. And of course, I'll dip into the department's Good Samaritan fund to get you proper compensation for your work. For now, go home to your wife. I'm sure I'll have something else for you to look into fairly soon.
Welcome to Lorraine. An awfully cute baby you got there.
Oh, thank you, sir. This is my son, Alexander.
Alexander. That's a good name. Strong name.
Yes, thank you. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm in a bit of a hurry and I need to get to my hotel.
Of course. I won't keep you any longer, Mrs. Walker.
Thank you. Wait. How did you know my name?
I didn't. It was a lucky guess. But now, seeing as I know your name, allow me to tell you mine. I'm Sheriff Zeke Dollarhide. Linda Walker, you are under arrest for the kidnapping of Charles Harris. Surrender the child and come with me.
No, you've got it all wrong. This is my son. This is my Alexander.
Ma'am, please don't make this difficult. Come along to the station and we'll get this all sorted out.
Addie, are you home?
Still at her appointment, it would seem. You know, Miles, I have to say, I'm proud of you.
Why's that?
It's because you actually listened.
So does this mean you'll keep quiet until morning?
I said I was proud of you. I didn't say you were getting a reprieve.
Then I need to figure out how I'm going to sleep through the night without the soporific.
You worry about that too much, Miles. You can sleep when you're dead.
You don't ever seem to.
That's because I slept quite enough when I was alive.
In any case, I need to clear my head. The best way to do that after a case was always going for a drink at the Angel.
The Angel? But you haven't been there since...
Since you died. But perhaps getting back into old routines will help.
Perhaps. It would be nice to see old Patrick again at the very least. Then it's settled. A drink or two at the Angel, for old time's sake.
I have to say, it's been a real pleasure having you back, Miles. I was worried about you.
I appreciate your concern, Patrick. The past few months have been a bit rough, but it's good to be back in familiar territory.
Miles, can I ask you something?
What is it?
Well, it may be none of my business, and you can feel free to tell me to stuff it.
Enough with the preamble, Patrick. Just ask.
I know you quit the force, but why are you still working as a private investigator? Why not leave all that detecting stuff behind?
It's all I know. My grandfather was a cop, my father was a cop, so I became a cop. That's just how it went.
Oh, I hear ya. I come from 3 generations of butchers myself, but I broke the streak because I can't handle the sight of blood.
If only that had been true in my case.
Now then, will you be wanting another drink?
I'm not sure. I've already had 2. I should probably be getting... Wait a minute. Patrick, do you hear something?
No, Miles. I don't hear anything.
Neither do I. Another gin, if you please.
Coming right up.
I must have taken a wrong turn back there. Hopefully Addie won't hear me come in.
Excuse me, sir. Could you spare a shilling?
Here you are, my good man.
You always were willing to help the less fortunate, weren't you? But perhaps you should start thinking about helping yourself.
I beg your pardon?
Just look at yourself. I may be a beggar, but even I feel sorry for you.
Your voice. I've heard it before.
Yes, that's right. I'm your biggest failure.
What are you talking about?
Come now, Miles, you're not completely stupid. You think finding and catching me is going to make things better?
Yes, I do. I owe it to Bill, and that's enough to make it worth doing.
That's very touching. But you need to face reality. Let's say you do find me, and this grand chase finally ends. What do you do the next morning? You still have a dead partner, no real job. Your wife knows you've been keeping things from her. Even if you solve 100 cases, it won't relieve that empty feeling inside.
What's your point?
I'm all you've got, Miles. Once I'm gone, there'll be nothing left. So just admit it. You don't want to find me. Not really. Bad dreams?
You could say that. My head. How many drinks did I have last night?
You're asking the wrong person. I was out after the first one.
It seems Miss Maxwell was right about the effects of spirits. Go figure.
Yeah, well, let's not make a habit out of it, all right?
So, you're up at last.
Is something the matter, Addie?
Oh, I see. You don't remember last night, do you? I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
Whatever may have happened, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me.
Remorse comes before forgiveness, Miles. You don't even know what you're apologizing for.
Was it that bad? What exactly did I do?
It was nearly 2 when you burst in here, soused to the eyeballs from God knows where. I imagine you've probably forgotten that too. You were muttering something about peace and quiet and then proceeded to relieve yourself on my begonias before stumbling into bed.
Charming. I salute you, O Vice Admiral of the Narrow Seas.
Good God. How embarrassing. I'm so sorry, Addie. I don't know what came over me.
I don't either. I've never seen you in such a state, and I pray that I never will again.
You won't see me like that again, ever. Trust me.
What possessed you to go out and get so drunk anyway?
I decided to stop taking the soporific. It was interfering with my ability to focus on cases. I thought perhaps having a drink or two would help me sleep, and I got a bit carried away.
I see. Well, I'm at least glad you've stopped taking that terrible medicine. But trading it for alcohol? This had better really be a one-time occurrence. Anyway, you got another message from Upton. It's there on the table, if you're feeling fit for the world now.